Hi, this is Chris and Magoosh, and I'm here with an installment of Vocabulary Wednesday. And instead of just giving you a bunch of words today, I'm going to give you some killer vocabulary tips. That's right, it's about how you go about learning vocabulary. That's going to make a huge difference testing. So, first thing, flashcards. They are a great first step to doing things. I don't want to say, don't use flashcards anymore. But you have to take it to the next level. So let's talk about that next level. First thing is, don't just learn the word, learn the context. So you've learned the definition to the word, you've looked at your flashcard, and then you wonder to yourself, well, what does that really look like in a sentence? So I'm using today the word inscrutable. If I read the dictionary, it means difficult to interpret or understand. Well, how do you actually use that in a sentence? Is like really complex quantum mechanics, that sounds pretty inscrutable. Okay, but guess what? That's not actually how the word is used, and there's no way you would know that. So how would you know that? So I'm going to make a big plug here for vocabulary.com. Vocabulary.com is such a good friend of context. Why? Well, I'm going to take a look now. I'm going to read while I talk. This is their website. I've just typed in inscrutable, and it says, any person or thing that's mysterious, mystifying, hard to read, impossible to interpret is inscrutable. Aha, now I realize it's about the actual person. It's not like a subject, or it's not like black holes, they are inscrutable. It's like, what is the person thinking? I don't know. I'm at a poker table. What is that other person thinking? I can't read them. They are inscrutable. And so vocabulary.com is going to give you this deeper context of the word. And what's awesome about it is you also get example sentences that you can read. And that is my next big tip. Read, read, and read. So what's cool about that is when you see these words in these sentences, and I'm going to scroll down just so I can read some of them. They're like from famous newspapers, so I apologize. My screen went black, or you saw my shirt, but now here we are. I'm back. So I'll read the first one, which is from New York Times. To her classmates, professors, and even her romantic partners, this dazzling performance is sometimes inscrutable. Unfortunately for the reader, blah, 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 it goes on. But we can say, okay, so she performed, and now it was a word describing actually not just her, but her performance. But when she performed, people really weren't sure how to read it. Anyway, there are a few more sentences, all with the word inscrutable. And now you've gotten to the point where that word is not puzzling and is not inscrutable in of itself, but you know that usage isn't the best way of using the word, because if you see it on the GRE, they're probably going to talk about a person or something that usually thinks, not necessarily like something abstract. Okay, next thing. What's my next killer tip? It is learning synonyms, because so often we learn a word and maybe we learn the context and we don't realize like it's easy to add like 3 words that basically mean the same thing to it. And that's going to not just double, but like triple and quadruplify your vocabulary. So I go to thesaurus.com. And there I enter in the word inscrutable, and I get enigmatic, I get cryptic, I get unfathomable, unintelligible. Hopefully I wasn't unintelligible just now, but words that are similar to that. And of course you can always cross-check and look those words up on vocabulary.com to see if there are important or subtle differences. But just like that, you've expanded your vocabulary 3 or 4-fold. Next is encountering words in the wild. Now, a second ago, I said read, read, and read, and I just read an example sentence. But instead of just example sentences, which are just one word, the word you're looking at, imagine opening up a newspaper or the New York Times, but no one reads newspapers anymore. So you go to the website, and maybe you have a subscription, maybe you don't, or maybe you go to theatlantic.com, or maybe The Economist. These are all great publications that will use and sprinkle these words throughout their articles, words that you've been learning. And so if you're just starting off, maybe it would be a little bit intimidating because there'd be a lot of words you don't know. But if you already have a few words under your belt and what you're noticing is you're forgetting these words, I learned that like 3 weeks ago. It's great to read in the wild, because when you encounter those words, all of a sudden in the wild in an article, it triggers your brain and says, oh, I remember that word. What does it mean? What does it mean? And that thinking that your brain is doing is really healthy for long-term memory, because once you conjure up that word, oh yeah, it was inscrutable. That's right. It meant difficult to interpret, blah, blah, blah. Once you've done all that mental exercise, it really buries it deep inside your brain. And even if you can't come up with the word, the fact that you did all that mental exercise, studies have shown that that is going to help you learn the word at a much deeper level and be able to recall it 2 months out from now when it's time for the test, or at least more likely to be able to do that. So that is another great tip, is also reading the while. Finally, what's my last killer tip? Might sound kind of generic, but do lots of GRE exercises with vocabulary in them, because you're actually using those words. You're not just looking at a word and saying, okay, inscrutable means difficult to interpret, but you're looking at a bunch of words all at once. And so it's like, brain overload. But that struggle you're doing helps you kind of grapple with these different definitions and call them up really quickly. That way, test day, you don't feel as overwhelmed, and you're actually calling up or remembering the definitions of words as you're solving the GRE problem, which is almost like a different skill set. So you're learning the words and you're learning how to recall them so you can solve the problem, and that's going to just make you that much better test day. And those are my killer vocab tips for the day.